close your eyes, and allow the weight of the day to dissolve softly, like mist drifting away from a quiet lake at dawn. Take a long, slow breath in, and let it flow out gently. Again. A little softer. A little deeper. Feel the space around you becoming dim, warm, welcoming. Feel the quiet settling like a blanket around your thoughts. Tonight, your mind will walk through ancient worlds, slowly, peacefully, as if moving through a dream whispered by the earth itself. You are about to enter a universe older than familiar myths, older than marble temples or northern sagas. You are traveling into the heart of Mesoamerica, into a world woven from breath, maze, feathers, stone, and starlight. A world shaped not by a single creation but by cycles. By suns that rose and fell. By gods who dreamed, struggled, and sacrificed so that life could continue its long, soft awakening. In the beginning there was no earth, no sky, no stars. Only a warm, endless darkness, quiet as the moment before sleep. It was a darkness not of fear but of possibility, like the stillness between heartbeats. In that vast, velvety calm, the first makers drifted. They had no faces, no bodies, no forms. They were intentions, thoughts moving like slow currents beneath an unbroken night. They wondered how a world should begin, what shape light should take, how living beings would breathe, grow, and dream. Their first act was water. A great, silent ocean stretching in every direction. Not blue but black and shimmering, holding secrets yet unborn. The water rippled with potential, stirred by the maker's faint whispers. And from its depths rose a massive creature, Sepactli, the Ancient One. She was not monster nor deity in the way humans understand such things. She was the raw hunger of creation itself. Her limbs were mountains waiting to become. Her scales shimmered like carved obsidian. She opened her many jaws not to destroy, but to receive the world that was yet to form. With reverence, the makers shaped the earth from her body. Her back became the first ridges of land. Her limbs stretched into continents. Rivers formed across her vast form like veins carrying water from the heart of the world. Sepactli did not resist, she dreamed. And her dreaming became the foundation upon which everything else would rise. In the darkness above this newborn land, a whisper of wind stirred. A soft, spiraling breath that glowed faintly with colors not yet named. From the breath emerged a long, elegant shape, the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl. Feathers shimmered along his body like strands of dawn woven from emerald and turquoise. He moved with the gentleness of a breeze sliding over calm water. With each pass across the land, he guided rivers, softened valleys, smoothed the edges of mountains. Balance followed him like a shadow. But where there is balance, there must also be pressure, movement, change. And so, from the deeper shadows of the forming sky rose Tezcatlipoca, dark, powerful, shining with the cold brilliance of obsidian. He was the force that carved, tested, refined. The whisper of necessary conflict. Where Quetzalcoatl's wind soothed, Tezcatlipoca's fire challenged. And between them the world grew stronger. Together, these forces ushered in the first great cycle of creation. The first sun rose, a bright, fierce light burning with Tezcatlipoca's essence. It was too strong for the young world. Forests withered beneath it. Rivers shrank. And so Quetzalcoatl wrapped the sun in his coils, calming it until it broke apart, falling into darkness. The first age ended. The second sun rose through Quetzalcoatl's gentle breath. Its light was warm, nurturing. Under it, plants flourished. Animals multiplied. But comfort grew too deep. Life softened. And the world, untested, became fragile. So the second sun faded, returning everything to twilight. The third sun brought storms, wild, magnificent, ceaseless. Lightning etched scars across the sky. Rain carved new paths through the earth. Life learned to endure, to adapt, to become clever and resilient. But the storms grew overwhelming. When the third sun collapsed, the world rested again. Then came the fourth sun, steady, orderly, rhythmic. Under its balanced light, the first humans were shaped from maize, the sacred substance of life. They opened their eyes with wonder, gratitude, and the ability to remember. They learned to plant, to pray, to honor the gods who had shaped their world. But even this sun could not shine forever. Its purpose was to prepare humanity for something greater, a more complex age. And so, after countless generations, the fourth sun dimmed. In its place, a new orb waited in the heavens, brilliant, powerful, demanding. The fifth sun. To ignite it, a god had to sacrifice everything. Tenochtitlan, humble and trembling, stepped into the sacred fire. His body dissolved into brilliance, rising into the sky as the sun of our present age. Under its warm light, the great civilizations of Mesoamerica were born. And now, guided by this fifth sun, the world would awaken into its legendary chapters. The Olmecs, the Maya, the Zapotecs, and the rise of the Mexica, the people of Tenochtitlan. Breathe softly now. Let the fifth sun warm your mind as we drift deeper into the story. As the fifth sun climbed higher into the sky, its steady warmth awakened a world ready to shape civilizations. Under its radiant path, forests thickened, rivers deepened, and sky and earth settled into a stable rhythm. Humanity, born of maize and carried by breath, began to organize itself into communities that slowly grew into cultures, and cultures that blossomed into the first great civilizations of Mesoamerica. Far to the south, in lands where mist clung to the earth each morning, the first of these cultures rose, the Olmecs. Their world was humid, lush, breathing with life. Swamps whispered with the calls of hidden birds. Thick vines hung like curtains over quiet streams. Dense groves of ceiba trees towered above everything, their trunks rising like pillars of an ancient cathedral. In this world of deep green, the Olmecs carved their lives with reverence and quiet strength. They shaped colossal heads from basalt, each weighing many tons. These enormous faces, with broad lips and calm, piercing eyes, seemed almost alive, guardians watching over the land even as centuries passed. Some say these heads carried the spirits of rulers. Others say they represented the gods speaking through human form. Either way, these stone giants stood as witnesses to ritual, memory, and the slow turning of time. For the Olmecs, the natural world was alive with meaning. Rivers were pathways for spirits, mountains were embodiments of ancient deities, animals held sacred lessons. The jaguar especially held a place of deep reverence. In the jaguar's silent steps, the Olmecs saw the night. In its strength they saw the divine. Their shamans draped themselves in jaguar skins and entered trances where they believed they became one with the great predator, slipping through the boundaries between worlds. Under the fifth sun's warm light, their villages grew. Their rituals deepened. Their calendars took shape. Their influence spread like roots across the fertile soil of Mesoamerica, giving rise to symbols and beliefs that would echo for millennia. As the Olmec world slowly faded into the jungle, a new power rose far inland. A city so grand, so meticulously constructed, that later peoples believed it had been built by gods. Teotihuacan, the city of the gods. Imagine standing at dawn on the Avenue of the Dead, the great stone road stretching straight into the distance. The air is cool. Mist gathers in low pockets, drifting between massive structures. Ahead, the pyramid of the sun rises like a sleeping mountain, its shape perfectly aligned with the path of the heavens. To the side stands the pyramid of the moon, smaller but steeped in quiet power, like the city's silent heartbeat. Teotihuacan was not simply built. It was designed with cosmic precision. Every angle, every courtyard, every platform echoed the movements of stars. When the sun rose at certain times of the year, its light aligned perfectly with the pyramid staircases, as though the city itself were breathing with the sky. Priests climbed those steps in the early morning, their bodies painted in red and black, offering incense to greet the rising light. Here, beneath the fifth sun, the people studied astronomy with patience and devotion. They mapped the movements of Venus, the sacred morning star, observing its cycles with astonishing accuracy. They created a calendar that guided rituals, planting, trade, and the lives of kings. Teotihuacan was an engine of knowledge, stone and spirit fused into a single, enormous, breathing entity. The people who lived there honored gods of rain, fertility, fire, and wind. And among these divine forces, one began to appear with growing frequency. A serpent with feathers, its body twisting in elegant curves, shimmering like sunlight reflected on water. Quetzalcoatl. The feathered serpent became a guiding presence. a symbol of knowledge, wind, creation, and renewal. His influence traveled along trade routes, carried on obsidian blades and painted pottery. His image moved through valleys, forests, and mountains, eventually reaching the deep jungles to the south, where another civilization waited to rise under the patient glow of the fifth sun. The Maya, masters of time. The Maya saw the world through the lens of time itself. To them, time was not a straight path, it was a living pattern, a spiral, a rhythm woven into the very structure of existence. In their cities, Tikal rising above the jungle canopy, Palenque nestled in emerald hills, Calakmul hidden in shadows, they built observatories shaped like rounded eyes gazing endlessly at the heavens. Maya priests rose before dawn to watch the first rays of sunlight touch their temples. They tracked not just the movement of the sun, but the wandering of stars and the dance of planets. They created calendars so intricate and accurate that even modern astronomers marvel at their precision. They believed each day carried its own spirit, its own purpose, its own energy. To act without respect for the calendar was to disrupt the balance of the world. Their myths reflected their understanding of cycles. The story of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, told of bravery, trickery, death, and rebirth, mirroring the path of the sun through the sky and into the underworld each night. Their sacred book, the Popol Vuh, spoke of creation through many attempts, echoing the earlier cycles of the suns. Maya cities were alive with ceremony. Incense drifted through wide plazas. Drums pulsed like distant thunder. Dancers moved with slow, sweeping gestures, imitating the flow of time, the rise of maize, the passing of seasons. Their art, carved into jade and stone, depicted serpents, jaguars, gods of rain, gods of lightning, gods of maize, gods of time. Each deity reflected an aspect of the natural world and the celestial order. Yet even the Maya, with all their knowledge, understood that nothing lasts forever. Their cities eventually fell silent. The jungle embraced them slowly, tenderly. Roots wrapped their temples. Leaves blanketed their plazas. The fifth sun continued its journey overhead, but time had turned a new page. Into the highlands, Zapotecs and Mixtecs. In the valleys and mountains of Oaxaca, two cultures flourished quietly but with profound depth. The Zapotecs built Monte Alban high above the clouds, its plazas aligned with the cardinal directions. From this mountaintop city, priests studied stars that seemed almost within reach. They carved intricate glyphs and buried their rulers in tombs painted with images of spirits guiding them through the underworld. The Mixtecs, painters of memory, created elaborate codices, folded books of deerskin painted with stories of gods, kings, marriages, and cosmic lineages. Their art was a tapestry of symbols, each color and line chosen with deliberate intention. Together, these cultures formed a bridge, linking ancient knowledge with the world that was yet to rise. For beyond the valleys and jungles, beyond rivers and mountains, a wandering people journeyed north to south, guided by prophecy and sustained by vision. A people who would one day raise an empire beneath the fifth sun. A people who would call themselves Mexica. And their city would rise from the heart of a lake, shining like a dream summoned from water and sky. Tenochtitlan. Before the Mexico were rulers, they were wanderers. They moved through the valleys of central Mexico like a drifting thought, carrying little with them but memory, devotion, and a promise given by a god. Their world began not with stone walls or golden temples, but with footsteps in dust and reeds, with campfires under cold stars, with stories told quietly at the edges of lakes and fields. Their patron was Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird of the south, god of the rising sun in war, god of fire and movement, a force of relentless forward motion. He did not speak to them in gentle metaphors. He spoke in commands, in visions, in signs painted directly upon the world. He told them, "Do not settle yet. Do not rest. Wait for the sign I will send you. Only then will your true home be revealed." So they walked. Night after night, they huddled around small fires, the flickering flames reflected in their weary eyes. They listened to old men and women tell stories of earlier ages, of suns that had burned and collapsed, of gods who had sacrificed themselves for light. Children fell asleep to these tales, their dreams filled with feathered serpents and jaguars with ember eyes. Above them, the fifth sun shone by day, but at night the stars felt close, as if the gods were leaning in to hear the quiet rustle of their prayers. The Mexica wandered through lands already claimed by others, the cities of the Toltecs, the valleys of settled farmers, the domains of kings who saw them as intruders. They were pushed to the margins, to the edges of swamps and the least desirable land. Yet they carried within them a fierce patience, a sense that they were moving along a line drawn by destiny itself. Then one day they reached a great lake, Lake Texcoco, its surface shimmering like polished obsidian beneath the fifth sun. Reeds swayed near the shore. Birds circled above the water, their wings catching small flashes of light. It did not look like a kingdom. It looked like a threshold. There, in the middle of the lake on a small island, the Mexica saw it. An eagle perched upon a nopal cactus, rising from the stone. In its claws a serpent writhed. The bird's feathers shone like fragments of the sun itself, its eyes sharp and unwavering. For the Mexica this was not a simple image. It was the precise sign Huitzilopochtli had promised them. The place where eagle, serpent, cactus, and stone met was where they were meant to build. So they did. On that small, unlikely island, they began to raise their city, Tenochtitlan. At first it was nothing more than clustered huts and simple causeways, woven from reeds and supported by wooden stakes driven into the lake bed. But under their hands the island grew. They built chinampas, floating gardens made of mud, reeds, and woven branches, tiny rectangular worlds drifting on still water, anchored by willow trees. On these fertile rafts they planted maize, beans, squash, flowers. The lake nourished them from below, the fifth sun ruled them from above. Tenochtitlan's foundations were watery, but its spirit was stone. Year by year the Mexica built upward. They laid out causeways connecting the island to the shores. They erected temples that grew taller with each new rain. They paved plazas where markets would bloom with color and noise. From humble beginnings, the city spread like a reflection of the cosmos itself, its canals mirroring the paths of the stars, its temples rising like artificial mountains. In the very heart of Tenochtitlan stood the Templo Mayor, a great twin pyramid leaning slightly into the sky. 2 staircases climbed its face. At the top, 2 shrines stood side by side. One belonged to Huitzilopochtli, lord of war, sun, and sacrifice. The other to Tlaloc, the rain god, giver of water and storms. Fire and water. War and fertility. Sun and rain. Each day the fifth sun rose over this temple, and the people saw in it the balance that allowed their world to exist. Life in Tenochtitlan unfolded in rhythms, like a slow chant. At dawn, the city woke to the sound of drums echoing faintly over the water. Smoke curled into the sky from countless hearths as women ground maize on stone metates, shaping tortillas that would sustain their families. Men walked to the chinampas, their canoes gliding silently through canals still touched by morning mist. Children followed their teachers to calm courtyards where they learned not only how to speak and count, but how to honor the gods, how to understand the calendar, how to see themselves as small threads woven into a much larger pattern. The market at Tlatelolco, Tenochtitlan's bustling twin, filled with color and sound as the sun climbed higher. Merchants brought cacao beans, obsidian blades, bright quetzal feathers, cotton garments, carved jade, dried chiles, and fragrant tobacco. People traded, bartered, laughed quietly, argued softly. The city was alive, thrumming beneath the fifth sun like a heart. Yet beneath all the everyday motion, there pulsed a constant spiritual awareness. The Mexica believed that the cosmos had been born from sacrifice and that it continued only because sacrifice remained. They honored the story of Nanahuatzin, who had thrown himself into fire to become the fifth sun. They believed that, just as a heart must keep beating for a body to live, offerings must continue for the sun to move across the sky. Their rituals, to modern eyes, seemed severe, but to them they were acts of cosmic maintenance, the highest form of participation in the life of the universe. Their pantheon reflected many layers of earlier belief. There was Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, god of wind, wisdom, and creation, often seen as a patron of priests, artists, and scribes, gentler, introspective, a guide in dreams and learning. There was Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror, a god of night, change, and destiny. His obsidian mirror showed not what one wished to see but truth, sometimes painful, always transformative. There was Tlaloc, with his goggle eyes and fanged mouth, who ruled rain, lightning, and mountain springs. Children and farmers alike prayed to him, for too little rain meant starvation and too much meant floods. There was Coatlicue, she of the serpent's skirt, a primordial mother whose image was both terrifying and profound, skulls, serpents, claws, and yet the womb of everything. There were gentle deities of flowers, pleasure, art, fierce gods of war and fire. And always, beneath them all, the sense that life and death were not opposites, but partners in a dance that never stopped. At night, when the city quieted and the surface of Lake Texcoco reflected the stars like scattered grains of obsidian dust, the people of Tenochtitlan would look up and feel the immense weight of the fifth sun and all the ages before it. They knew they lived in the latest chapter of a long cosmic story. They knew that other worlds had come and gone. They knew this sun too would one day falter. But instead of despair, this gave them purpose. To them, every ritual, every offering, every whispered prayer helped hold the sky in place for one more day. One more harvest. One more generation of children who would learn to see themselves as sacred participants in a world born from sacrifice and layered with meaning. As you rest now, imagine yourself walking slowly through Tenochtitlan at dusk. The fifth sun is sinking, painting the lake with red and gold. The pyramids glow softly. Incense drifts from the Templo Mayor. The city sighs as it shifts from the noise of day into the quiet of night. Somewhere a conch shell sounds low and resonant, like the universe breathing in. You are small here, and that is a comfort. You are one dream among many. One breath under an ancient, watching sun. As night settles over Tenochtitlan, the city changes its rhythm. The sounds soften. The canals grow still, their waters becoming long mirrors in which the stars tremble like distant lanterns. Torches flicker along the causeways. The wind carries the faint scent of copal incense rising from the temple precinct. And in this quiet, you begin to feel the deeper layers of Mexica belief. Those that speak not only of gods and cities, but of the vast, unseen world beneath and around all things. For the Mexica did not see the universe as one plane. They believed it was a great tree with many levels, its roots reaching into the depths and its branches rising into the highest heavens. At its base lay Mictlan, the land of the dead. Above the earth were 13 heavens. Between them were worlds of mist, fire, storms, wind, flowers, and serpents. Every human life moved through these layers, guided by breath, by spirit, by destiny. To understand their world, you must first understand their vision of death. The Mexica did not fear death in the way modern thought imagines. To them, death was movement, a transition, a continuation of duty into another realm. They believed that the fate of a soul depended not on virtue or sin, but on the manner of one's death, on the story carved into the final moment of breath. Those who died in battle or in sacrifice rose to accompany the sun in its daily journey, becoming shimmering companions to Huitzilopochtli. Women who died in childbirth joined the western sky, honored as fierce spirits whose struggle mirrored that of warriors. Those taken by water traveled to Tlalocan, a paradise of eternal greenery, where flowers dripped from trees and rains fell gently like soft beads of jade. Others, most, began a journey into the deep, quiet dark of Mictlan. Imagine that realm now. A place without wind, without sunlight. A place where shadows move slowly as though submerged in water. Mictlan was ruled by Mictlantecutli and Mictecacituatl, Lord and Lady of Death, skeletal beings adorned in jewelry of bone, their faces still and unreadable. They were not cruel. They were custodians, guardians of the boundary between life and the silent land. Souls descending into Mictlan passed through 9 levels. Mountains that moved, winds of obsidian, rivers of blood, fields where unseen hands tried to pull the living downward. But these were not punishments. They were transformations, stripping away the last traces of earthly attachment before the soul rested in stillness. At night in Tenochtitlan, when the torches flickered and the lake whispered against the stilts of wooden homes, people often prayed softly for their ancestors. They believed the dead were close, not in a frightening way, but like a deep echo beneath daily life. Offerings of food, water, and flowers were placed to honor those who had walked before. In these moments, life and death stood side by side, like reflections on the surface of the lake. But if Mictlan held the past, the heavens held what might come. The Mexica envisioned the sky as a series of ascending layers, each one home to a different type of divine presence. In one layer, lightning gods hurled burning serpents across the night. In another, hummingbirds danced between flowers that glowed with celestial light. In others, the feathered serpent drifted on warm currents of wind, watching with eternal patience. And high above them all, beyond the reach of cloud or star, lay the realm of Ometeotl, the dual god who was both male and female, both stillness and motion, both beginning and end. Ometeotl did not intervene in the world directly. Instead, the deity existed as the quiet pulse behind creation, like the silence between 2 drumbeats. This cosmic vision shaped everything the Mexica did. It shaped their calendars, 2 distinct cycles interlocking like gears. It shaped their rituals, daily, yearly, and every 52 years when the cycles aligned. It shaped their art, serpents spiraling in patterns of wind and water, sun discs radiating with carved flames, jaguar faces emerging from obsidian shadows. Most of all, it shaped their sense of responsibility. The 5th sun, born from sacrifice, required nourishment to continue. Not only blood, as is often emphasized, but also breath, prayer, dance, flowers, incense, acts of gratitude that reminded humans of their place in the great unfolding story. The Mexica believed the sun had already died 4 times. They lived in the brief window of the 5th and final age. And so, each sunrise was a miracle renewed. Each sunset was a moment of quiet tension, a question whispered to the gods. Will there be another dawn? In their grand ceremonies, priests would climb the Templo Mayor at dusk, torches in hand, their silhouettes long and wavering. At the summit, they watched the sun sink behind the mountains, staining the sky with deep orange and violet. Drums echoed from below, slow, steady like the heartbeat of the world. When darkness finally settled, they lit sacred fires, sending spirals of smoke to meet the stars. In these moments, the city felt as though it hovered between worlds, the living standing on the threshold of the divine. As you wander through this world in your imagination, feel the way everything was interconnected for the Mexica. Stars guiding rituals, rivers shaping myths, mountains considered the bones of ancient gods, maize seen as the flesh of humanity. Everything had spirit. Everything had meaning. Everything belonged to a cycle far greater than any individual life. And this worldview gave rise not only to ceremony but to myth. One myth above all others shaped the identity of the Mexica, a story of conflict, betrayal, and birth. The story of Coatlicue and her children. Coatlicue, the Earth Mother, walked alone one day sweeping the mountain shrine of Cotepec. A ball of feathers descended from the sky and touched her chest. She placed it in her dress, but when she reached for it again, it was gone, absorbed into her womb. She became pregnant. Her daughter, Coatlicue, grew furious, believing this new child dishonored them. She rallied her 400 brothers, warriors of the night sky. Together they vowed to slay their mother before the child could be born. They stormed up the mountain, armed, determined. But at the final moment, Coatlicue gave birth to Huitzilopochtli, fully grown and armed with a serpent-shaped weapon. He emerged in a blaze of light, defeated his siblings and cast Coatlicue down the mountain, her body shattering into pieces that became the moon. The myth was not meant to be taken literally. It reflected the eternal battle between day and night, between order and chaos, between rising sun and the fading moon. And in this myth, the Mexica saw themselves, a people born from struggle, destined to rise, guided by a fierce, luminous force. The city they built, Tenochtitlan, became the embodiment of this myth. Its temples, its plazas, its ceremonies all pointed toward a single idea, that the world must be constantly renewed, constantly honored, constantly rebalanced. And as you breathe slowly now, deeper, softer, you can feel the rhythm of that ancient renewal. The city glows beneath the 5th sun. The lake reflects the sky like dark glass. The temples rise like mountains forged from purpose. And the story continues to unfold. In the next block, you will drift into the stories of Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca. Their rivalry, their guidance, and their shadows that shaped the destiny of entire civilizations. In the calm hours before dawn, when Tenochtitlan still sleeps and the 5th sun has not yet risen, the world feels like a held breath. The lake lies completely still. The sky is a deep, velvety blue. The stars tremble faintly, as if unsure whether to stay or fade. This is a sacred hour, an hour when myths drift close to the earth, like soft feathers carried on the wind. In this quiet, the 2 most influential forces of Mesoamerican myth begin to reveal themselves: Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca. They are brothers not by blood but by cosmic design, 2 aspects of creation. 2 forces that, together, shaped civilizations, guided destiny, and taught humanity through balance and tension. They were not simple opposites. Not good and evil. Not light and darkness in a moral sense. They were the wind and the obsidian. The dream and the mirror. The breath that creates and the shadow that tests. To understand the world under the 5th sun, you must walk with both of them. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. Imagine the soft rustle of wind at dawn, the first cool breath moving across the lake. That is Quetzalcoatl. He appears not in thunder or flames, but in gentle clarity, like a thought forming in the mind just before waking. His body is long and serpentine, but adorned with feathers that shimmer in turquoise, jade, and emerald hues. He glides through the sky in smooth, spiraling curves, his presence as calming as deep, steady breathing. Wherever he moves, knowledge follows. He brings the arts of writing, calendar making, weaving, poetry, astronomy. He is the teacher who speaks with patience, the dream that leads a civilization toward refinement. He is associated with the planet Venus, the morning star. When Venus appears just before sunrise, bright and solitary in a softening sky, Many ancient priests believed it was Quetzalcoatl's light guiding them into a new day. If you listen closely in the quiet before dawn, you can almost hear his whisper. Learn, create, find harmony. Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror. Now imagine a different sound. The sharp crack of obsidian breaking, the shimmer of flame in a dark room, the sudden awareness of your own reflection. That is Tezcatlipoca. He carries an obsidian mirror that reflects truth. Not gentle truth, not comforting truth, but truth stripped of illusion. He is the night sky stirred by wind. The deep voice of fate. The force that disrupts comfort so growth can occur. Where Quetzalcoatl builds, Tezcatlipoca tests. Where Quetzalcoatl dreams, Tezcatlipoca awakens. He is not cruel. He is necessary. His smoke swirls around those who stand before him, revealing not what they wish to be but what they are. Many feared him, yet many also respected him, for no creation can stand without challenge. No civilization can mature without being pushed against its edges. In the obsidian glimmers of his mirror, destinies shift. The dance between brothers. Together, Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca shaped the cycles of the five suns. They battled. They collaborated. They destroyed. They rebuilt. Their stories are almost never simple. They twist like serpents around each other, weaving a pattern of duality that echoes throughout Mesoamerica. One of their most famous myths tells of the creation and destruction of earlier worlds. At times, Quetzalcoatl became the sun, shining with gentle radiance, guiding life toward harmony. At other times, Tezcatlipoca ascended as the sun, fierce and unyielding, pushing life toward strength. But one would always challenge the other, pulling the world into a new transformation. A world ruled by Quetzalcoatl grew too soft, too trusting. A world ruled by Tezcatlipoca grew too harsh, too severe. Balance was necessary, and so they continued a dance as ancient as existence. In another myth, the two wander together across the earth as creators, shaping valleys, sculpting mountains, guiding rivers. They bring fire to humanity. They teach rituals. They carve paths through the jungle. But eventually, their paths diverge, each carrying a different lesson that civilizations would interpret in their own way. In yet another telling, Tezcatlipoca tempts Quetzalcoatl into a moment of weakness, offering a mirror that reveals too much or a drink that clouds the mind. Quetzalcoatl, overcome by guilt, leaves his city and wanders east, eventually transforming into the morning star. Some say he sailed away on a raft of serpents. Others say he lit himself on fire and rose into the sky. The Mexica believed he would one day return. Not in wrath, not in conquest, but as a renewal. As morning light after a long night. These stories were not meant to be taken literally. They were metaphors for the inner movements of the human soul. Its growth, its failures, its transformation, its cycles of rising and falling. They reflected the constant tension between aspiration and ego, between clarity and shadow, between dreaming and awakening. The influence on civilization. Under the fifth sun, cities interpreted Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca in different ways. In Teotihuacan, Quetzalcoatl was honored as a bringer of order and knowledge. His temple was decorated with serpent heads surrounded by stylized feathers and seashells, symbols of wind and creation. In Tula, home of the Toltecs, Quetzalcoatl was seen as a wise priest-king whose teachings guided the people into an age of harmony. But even there, Tezcatlipoca's shadow lingered, reminding them that too much order could become stagnation. In Tenochtitlan, Tezcatlipoca became a god of destiny and kingship, one who chose rulers not for their comfort but for their strength. Yet Quetzalcoatl was honored too, especially by priests, scribes, and philosophers who sought clarity in the swirling smoke of ritual. The Mexica understood that both forces were essential. Without Quetzalcoatl, there would be no beauty, no poetry, no breath of renewal. Without Tezcatlipoca, there would be no growth through struggle, no resilience, no clarity. Together, they created the world humans lived in. Together, they shaped the path of the fifth sun. A quiet reflection before dawn. As you imagine yourself standing at the edge of Lake Texcoco before sunrise, feel the subtle presence of both gods. The breeze that brushes your cheek, light, cool, patient, that is Quetzalcoatl. The dark sky above you, full of hidden patterns and silent power, that is Tezcatlipoca. They do not speak loudly. They do not demand belief. They simply exist, intertwined, reminding you that every cycle has two halves. Every day has night, every breath has release. Slowly the sky begins to brighten. A soft glow forms in the east. The city stirs. Birds begin to call. And the fifth sun, Nanahuatsan's sacrifice, prepares to rise once more. In the next block, the story carries you toward the heart of the Mexico worldview: ritual, the sacred calendar, and the deep meaning of sacrifice, not as terror but as cosmic responsibility. As the first rays of the fifth sun touch the eastern sky, Tenochtitlan awakens with a slow, rippling motion, like a great lake stirred by a gentle breeze. The quiet turns into soft murmurs. Doors open. Canoes drift across canals with barely a sound. The morning air carries the faint smell of wood smoke, flowers, and wet stone. And above all of this, the ancient rhythm of the sacred calendar begins to pulse, steady and calm, guiding every action, every ritual, every breath. For the Mexica did not live by ordinary time. They lived inside two interwoven calendars, each one a voice of the cosmos. The Tanaupwali, the sacred count. The first calendar was the Tanaupwali, the 260-day cycle. To the Mexica, these days were not numbers, they were spirits, each carrying a unique energy. Every day had a sign and a number, forming combinations that shaped destiny. A child born on a day of wind would be curious, thoughtful, restless. One born on a day of jaguar might be fierce, instinctive, protective. A day of reed carried clarity. A day of knife carried transformation. Priests trained for years to interpret these signs. They were not telling fortunes. They were listening to the texture of reality, the quiet hum beneath existence. The Tanaupwali guided ceremonies, decisions, journeys, the moments most favorable for planting, the times when the veil between worlds grew thin. It was a calendar of breath, of spirit, of the unseen. The Xiapawali, the solar cycle. Then there was the Xiapawali, the 365-day solar calendar. This cycle governed the turning of seasons, the path of the sun, the rhythm of maize and rain. It was divided into 18 months of 20 days each, with 5 extra days, Nemontemi, the empty days. These days were quiet, fragile, considered liminal. People avoided loud celebrations or risky ventures during them, treating the world with delicate respect, as if the fifth sun needed a gentle pause before beginning again. When these two calendars aligned, something that happened once every 52 years, it marked the completion of a great cycle. A cosmic inhale and exhale. And with it came the most profound ritual of all. The new fire ceremony. The night without fire. Every 52 years, as the calendars completed their cycle, the Mexica prepared for a night that held the world in suspense. They believed that at the end of each cycle, the gods judged whether the fifth sun deserved to continue its journey. If not, the world would fall into darkness, never to rise again. So, on that night, every flame in Tenochtitlan was extinguished. Every hearth went cold. Every torch was snuffed out. The city became an island of silence in a sea of darkness. Families gathered indoors, their faces illuminated only by the faint glow of moonlight filtering through reed walls. They whispered prayers. They held one another close. The canals reflected only the stars, still, distant, patient. Priests climbed the hill of the star, east of the city, carrying no torches, only offerings. They watched the sky for a single sign, the rise of the Pleiades at the zenith. If the stars crossed the sky without falling, it meant the world would go on. At the exact moment the cluster reached its highest point, a priest would ignite a flame atop the hill, sparking a fire inside the chest of a sacrificial warrior, symbolically lighting the heart of the world. From this fire, runners carried torches across the valley, relighting every home, every temple, every hearth. People wept with relief. Children laughed. Drums echoed softly over the lake. The fifth sun had survived another cycle. This ritual, more than any other, captures the essence of the Mexica's worldview. That existence is fragile. That the cosmos must be supported. That humans are participants, not observers, in the balance of all things. Sacrifice in the Mexico world. To understand sacrifice as the Mexica understood it, you must set aside the modern sense of horror. For them, sacrifice was not cruelty. It was reciprocity. The gods gave their lives to create the world. Nanahuatzin burned himself to become the sun. The gods bled to animate the earth, the rivers, the trees. Humans, shaped in their image, carried a responsibility to return a small portion of that divine offering. Offerings took many forms. Flowers placed at shrines. Incense rising like prayers made visible. Maize dough shaped into sacred figurines. Songs sung at dawn. Children's laughter released into temple courtyards. Dances that traced the patterns of stars. Human sacrifice existed, yes, but it was only one part of a vast system of ritual exchange. To the Mexica, the body was temporary. The spirit was eternal. Those who died in sacrifice were honored, companions of the sun, warriors of the sky. Their essence fed the cycle, just as rain feeds the maize, just as maize feeds the people, just as people feed the gods through gratitude and devotion. In this worldview, life and death were intertwined. One sustained the other. One renewed the other. One flowed into the other like water returning to the lake. A city that breathes ritual. Walk again through Tenochtitlan in your imagination. The fifth sun is now high, casting silver-gold reflections across the canals. A procession moves through the streets, priests carrying banners of hummingbird feathers, dancers in jaguar pelts, drummers beating slow, deep rhythms that echo through the chest like a second heartbeat. The air is thick with incense. The city feels alive, not because of noise or crowds, but because every movement is tied to meaning. A woman grinds maize while humming a prayer. A boy tends to a chinampa, whispering thanks to Tlaloc for last night's gentle rain. A scribe carves glyphs into bark paper, recording the day's sign and number. Fishermen quietly push their canoes into the water, trusting the lake as their ancestors had for generations. At the center of the city, the Templo Mayor rises like a mountain of stone. Its twin shrines, one for Huitzilopochtli, one for Tlaloc, stand side by side, reflecting the duality that sustains the world. War and rain. Sun and water. Fire and fertility. This balance is not abstract. It is lived, breathed, embodied by everyone who walks these plazas. Night falls over a living world. As evening settles, the city glows dimly with torchlight. The lake reflects the last hints of sunset, turning gold, then purple, then deep blue. The air cools. Winds from the mountains drift into the valley, carrying distant scents of pine and stone. And overhead, the fifth sun slips below the western horizon, beginning its nightly journey through the underworld, where it battles darkness so it may rise again at dawn. People look up at the sky and whisper small thanks, not out of fear, not from desperation, but from deep, enduring gratitude. For another day lived, another balance maintained, another cycle completed. In the next block you will drift deeper into the heart of myth, the hero twins of the Maya, the lords of the underworld, and how stories themselves became bridges between worlds. Night settles gently over the valley, and with it comes a soft quiet that feels older than the mountains themselves. The stars emerge slowly, like glowing seeds scattered across a dark field. Their light is faint but steady, each one carrying a memory, a story, a whisper from an age long before the fifth sun. Under this shimmering sky, our path drifts away from Tenochtitlan for a time, moving eastward, deeper into the jungles where the Maya carved their sacred stories into stone. For the Maya, myth was not entertainment. It was not metaphor. It was architecture for the soul. Their stories explained the movements of the sky, the growth of maize, the journey of the sun, the cycle of birth and death. These stories were recited by priests, painted in codices, carved into monuments, and whispered to children as they fell asleep under that same soft glow of stars you see now. None of these stories was more important, more enduring, or more beautifully layered than the tale of the hero twins. The birth of the twins. Long before cities rose from the jungle, long before kings carved their names into towering stelae, there lived a young man named Hun Hunahpu and his brother Vucub Hunahpu. They were energetic, talented, and proud, especially skilled in the sacred ball game, a sport that echoed the motions of the heavens. The pounding of the rubber ball, the thunder of feet against the court, the rhythm of the players moving in perfect harmony, all of it stirred the underworld. And so, one day the lords of Xibalba, the Maya underworld, decided they had heard enough. Xibalba was not a place of fire. It was a place of shadows, labyrinths, whispered dangers, and trials that tested the spirit. Its lords, one death, seven death, and many others, reigned through trickery, illusions, and fear. They summoned the brothers to compete in the ballgame deep below the earth. The brothers accepted, proud and unafraid. But the underworld was a place where pride faltered. The brothers were tricked, defeated, and sacrificed. Their bodies were buried. Their skulls placed in the branches of a calabash tree. Yet even in death life found a way. One skull, belonging to Hun Hunahpu, dripped its essence into the hand of a maiden who wandered the underworld. She became pregnant, though she had met no man. The lords of Xibalba tried to destroy her, but she fled to the surface world, where she gave birth to twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque. These were the hero twins, clever, curious, brave, and deeply attuned to the hidden layers of the universe. Where their father and uncle failed, they would succeed. The trials of Xibalba. As they grew, the hero twins were guided by the memory of their father. They learned the ballgame. They learned cunning. They learned the ways of plants and animals, wind and water. And one day, they decided to descend into Xibalba and face the lords who had taken everything from their family. Their journey was not through physical tunnels, but through thresholds of consciousness. Each trial they faced was symbolic, a reflection of challenges every soul must overcome. They entered the House of Darkness, where they lit torches made from feathers, tricking the lords into believing the flames still burned. They entered the House of Blades, where obsidian knives hovered in deadly silence, waiting for blood. The twins used insects as decoys, keeping themselves untouched. They entered the House of Cold, where freezing winds howled like hungry spirits. They wrapped themselves in the warmth of their own ingenuity. They faced illusions, monsters, traps, and riddles. And with each challenge the hero twins grew stronger, not in muscle but in wisdom. Xibalba was a place where truth had to be found in shadows, where illusion had to be pierced, where courage was measured not by strength but by subtlety. Victory through sacrifice. The final trial was not a game of skill. It was a test of understanding. The lords of the underworld demanded a demonstration of power. The twins agreed, but with intentions far deeper than their enemies understood. They offered themselves to the fire. They allowed their bodies to be consumed by flame. But unlike their father, their story did not end there. From the ashes they rose again, transformed, luminous, radiant with divine power. The lords of Xibalba trembled. They realized too late that sacrifice willingly given could not destroy. It could only renew. The hero twins defeated the lords of death not through violence, but through transcendence. When their victory was complete, they traveled upward through the cosmic layers. Hunahpu ascended to become the sun. Xbalanque rose to become the moon. Their journey reflected the eternal dance of day and night, brother and brother, light and reflection. And thus, every dawn in the Maya world was a reminder of their triumph. Every moonrise a whisper of their presence. Every ritual ballgame a symbolic retelling of their story. What the hero twins meant to Mesoamerica. This myth echoed far beyond Maya lands. Its themes rippled through Mesoamerican belief. Life and death are not enemies but steps in a single journey. Sacrifice is a form of transformation, not destruction. Cunning and wisdom are as vital as strength. The heavens mirror human stories and human stories mirror the heavens. When priests in Tenochtitlan observed the sun's path or traced the arc of the moon across the sky, they were participating in the legacy of the hero twins. When children in Zapotec villages played early versions of the ballgame, their laughter echoed ancient cosmic rhythms. When Maya scribes painted in codices, they invoked the bravery and brilliance of the twins. Myth was not separate from life. Myth was woven into it like threads in a great textile. A return to the night. And so, under the fifth sun, the story of the hero twins continued to influence kings, priests, builders, farmers, and dancers across the centuries. Their tale became a guiding light, a reminder that darkness is not final, that every descent contains the seed of rising, that cycles turn, that dawn follows night. As the stars shimmer above Tenochtitlan, faint and distant but full of memory, you feel yourself sink gently into this understanding. A world built on cycles. A universe sustained by balance. A cosmos where every life is part of a larger rhythm. In the next block, your journey will return to the Valley of Mexico, to the rise of the Mexica Empire, to ceremonies, to daily life, and to the quiet, meditative truth behind their most enduring myths. The night deepens again over Tenochtitlan, and the lake reflects the stars with such clarity that the sky and the water seem to fold together into one endless, shimmering surface. Canoes drift silently, their wakes slicing long, gentle lines through the starlight. Somewhere in the distance, a lone flute begins to play, a soft, wandering melody that rises and falls like breath. The city is quiet but not asleep. It is listening. This is the perfect moment to drift deeper into the Mexico world, not through myth or divine origin, but through the rhythm of everyday life, a rhythm intertwined with cosmic meaning at every step. Dawn on the Chinampas. With the first light of morning, when the fifth sun paints the sky in shades of rose and amber, farmers glide across the lake to their Chinampas. These floating gardens are miracles of engineering, rectangles of fertile soil anchored by willow trees, nourished by lake water that moves slowly beneath their foundations. The air here is cool. The soil is dark and rich. The water laps gently at the edges. Birds scatter as the first farmers arrive, carrying tools made of wood and obsidian. They kneel in silence, touching the earth as if greeting an old friend. And then they begin to work, not hurriedly but with a slow, steady rhythm that matches the breathing of the lake. Maize stalks sway in the breeze. Squash vines curl along the ground. Beans climb slender supports toward the sun. Flowers, bright yellow, deep red, warm orange, grow in clusters, destined for rituals and offerings. These gardens are not just fields. They are tiny worlds, each one a partnership between human and nature. Every handful of soil, every seed pressed gently into the earth, is an act of gratitude. The farmers speak softly to the plants, offering blessings for growth, whispering thanks for harvests yet to come. The land listens, the lake listens, and the fifth sun, rising steadily above the mountains, listens too. The market at Tlatelolco. By midday the city is vibrant. Drums echo softly from distant courtyards. The smell of cooking maize drifts through the air. And thousands of people gather at Tlatelolco, the great market, heart of commerce and conversation. The market is arranged with care. Each section dedicated to different goods. Obsidian blades shining like black water. Bright green quetzal feathers. Cacao beans used as currency. Embroidered cotton garments. Gourds filled with fragrant copal. Baskets of tomatoes, chiles and avocados. Amaranth, honey, wild herbs. Pottery painted with swirling designs. Gold and turquoise jewelry that glints in the sun. Voices blend into a gentle murmur, never loud, always respectful. This is the pulse of the city, the place where people exchange not just goods but stories, news, laughter, companionship. A place where daily life is woven into the cosmic order. Priests wander through the crowd, quietly observing. Warriors stand with poise, their feathered cloaks rustling in the breeze. Scribes record transactions and disputes, their reed pens moving swiftly across bark paper pages. Children run barefoot through the aisles, laughing, playing, tasting samples of roasted maize or sweet cactus fruit. In this space, the city feels alive in the most human way, warm, communal, full of motion yet deeply harmonious. The calm of temples and schools. Away from the bustle of the market stand the quiet courtyards of Calmacac and Telpacali, the schools that shape the next generation. In the Calmacac, sons and daughters of nobles learn astronomy, philosophy, history, and sacred songs. They study the calendars until they can sense the subtle energies of days. They learn to read the stars and to chant prayers that align their breath with the rhythm of the cosmos. In the Telpacali, the majority of young people learn discipline, community service, the basics of warfare, respect for elders, and the arts of crafting and farming. They learn not to fight for cruelty but to fight for balance, to protect the cycles of sun and rain, to honor the ancestors who built the city from water and reed. Education in the Mexico world is not about status. It is about harmony, about learning to walk in balance with the fifth sun. Inside the Templo Mayor. As the day progresses, the sun climbs higher, shedding its brilliant warmth over the valley. The Templo Mayor stands in the center of the city, stone steps rising into the bright sky. Two shrines sit at the top, one for Huitzilopochtli and one for Tlaloc. Together they reflect the dual nature of existence. War and rain, fire and water, struggle and fertility, destruction and renewal. Priests ascend the steps in measured rhythm. Their bodies painted in deep blues and reds, feathers trailing behind them like soft flames. They carry offerings, flowers, maize, cocoa, incense, and yes, at times, blood. They move not with fear nor haste but with profound dignity. The smoke of copal fills the air as they call to the gods. Prayers for rain, prayers for sunlight, prayers for balance, prayers for the city's continued harmony. The fifth sun shines brightly overhead, warming the stone beneath their feet. Evening on the lake. As the day cools, life in the city slows. Shadows lengthen. Birds return to their nests. The colors of the sky shift from gold to pink to deep violet. Canoes slip across the lake once more, carrying farmers and families back to their homes. The sound of laughter drifts across the water. People gather on rooftops or near canals to share meals. Tortillas still warm from the griddle, beans cooked slowly with herbs, fresh tomatoes, roasted squash, and drinks flavored with cacao or vanilla. These meals are simple but nourishing, prepared with care, offered with gratitude. Children fall asleep early, wrapped in blankets woven with symbols of suns, serpents, and flowers. Adults sit beneath the changing sky, watching the first stars appear, talking softly about the day that passed and the day to come. The night rituals. As darkness settles fully, priests return to the Templo Mayor one last time. Torches flicker in the night breeze. The air grows cool and still. The lake becomes a perfect mirror for the heavens. The priests offer final prayers. For protection. For balance. For the safe passage of the sun through the underworld. They know that each night is a journey. The sun must descend into darkness, face trials we cannot see, and rise again in the morning. This understanding brings a deep, steady humility to the people who live under its light. They know they are part of a cycle far greater than themselves. The city dreams. And so, as Tenochtitlan rests, the city seems to breathe, a slow inhale, a slow exhale. The canals shimmer with moonlight. The silhouettes of temples stand tall against the darkened sky. The mountain peaks surrounding the valley glow faintly with starlight. You can imagine yourself drifting through these quiet streets, your footsteps soft on the stone. You feel safe, calm, connected to the world in a way that feels almost forgotten in the modern age. In the next block, we will move toward the final arc of this journey, the philosophical heart of Mesoamerican belief, the understanding of cycles, the quiet acceptance of impermanence, and the meditative wisdom carried gently beneath the fifth sun. The night is deep now, so deep that the stars seem to pulse in slow, steady rhythms, like distant hearts beating across the cosmos. The lake is flawless and still. The air is cool and quiet. Tenochtitlan sleeps, yet the world around it feels awake in a different way. Alert, listening, filled with a soft energy that drifts through the darkness like a slow-moving tide. This is the hour when philosophy breathes. When the great questions, about time, life, death, and purpose, move gently through the mind like drifting clouds. When the ancient wisdom of Mesoamerica speaks not with loud declarations, but with whispers. Tonight you drift into that whispering realm. The heart of Mesoamerican thought. The world is a cycle, not a line. For the peoples of ancient Mesoamerica, time did not march forward. It did not rush toward an end. It did not divide life into before and after. Time spiraled. It turned like the movement of the sun across the sky. Like maize sprouting, growing, dying, returning to the soil, sprouting again. Like the motion of stars that vanish with the dawn and return with the night. Like breath entering the body and leaving it. Birth and death were not doors in opposite walls. They were the same doorway, entered from different sides. This view shaped everything. Their calendars, their rituals, their cities, their relationships with gods and ancestors, their understanding of beauty and art, their acceptance of impermanence. To live in such a world was not frightening. It was grounding. It meant that nothing was final. Nothing was wasted. Nothing disappeared forever. Everything returned, changed, renewed, transformed. The flower and the song. In the Nahua tradition, the tradition of the Mexica and their neighbors, poets and philosophers used a simple phrase to describe truth. Flower and song. In Xochitl and Quetzalcoatl. This phrase meant that truth was found not in rigid rules or strict doctrines, but in beauty. In poetry. In the fleeting grace of a flower blooming for one day. In the sound of a flute drifting across the lake at dusk. They believed the world was fragile, like a blossom trembling in the wind. But they also believed that fragility was sacred. A flower is precious precisely because it fades. A song is meaningful because it ends. The fifth sun would one day set. Empires would rise and fall. Even mountains would crumble. But within each temporary moment lived something eternal. Not eternal in a physical sense but in a felt sense. Like the way memory lingers. Like the way a dream fills the heart even after waking. The calm acceptance of impermanence. Many Western myths seek eternal life, eternal power, eternal kingdoms. But the peoples of Mesoamerica sought something different. Balance, harmony between life and death, creating and releasing, rising and falling, holding and letting go. The Mexica understood death not as an enemy, but as a companion walking beside life. They carried death imagery everywhere, not as a morbid fascination but as a reminder of humility, gratitude, and presence. A skull carved into stone was not a threat. It was an invitation to live fully, gently, purposefully. To savor breath. To honor each sunrise. To recognize the holiness of existence. In their poetic tradition, a wise man once asked, "Is this what life is? A story told in flowers?" And the answer, softly spoken, was yes. The cosmic responsibility of humanity. In Mesoamerican philosophy, humans were not placed above nature, nor below it. They were woven into it, threads in a cosmic tapestry. Humans owed the gods gratitude. The gods owed humans sunlight, rain, growth, protection. Both sides gave. Both sides received. Even the act of sacrifice, so misunderstood today, was seen as a profound exchange. A way to nourish the sun so it would continue its path. A way to maintain the fragile machinery of the universe. To them, the cosmos was like a giant spinning stone that required constant balance. If humans stopped participating, the world might wobble, might falter, might collapse into darkness. And so gratitude was a daily practice. Offerings of flowers, songs at dawn, dances under moonlight, prayers whispered over maize dough. Incense rising like dreams turned into smoke. This gratitude connected them to everything. To the mountains, to the winds, to the lakes, to their ancestors, to the gods, to the fifth sun itself. The duality of existence. Duality was everywhere. Male and female. Day and night. Light and shadow. Fire and water. Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca. Creation and destruction. But duality was not conflict. It was complement. One gave meaning to the other. One completed the other. One softened or sharpened the other. In the interconnectedness of dual forces, the Mexica saw beauty, not chaos. They believed every moment of life required both. The calm clarity of Quetzalcoatl, and the sharp truth of Tezcatlipoca. Without challenge, life grew complacent. Without inspiration, life grew cold. Together, these forces shaped the heart of their worldview. A worldview as delicate and strong as obsidian. The quiet wisdom of stars. As you imagine yourself standing once again on the shores of Lake Texcoco, feel the stillness of the night. The way the stars shimmer gently. The way the mountains form dark silhouettes against the sky. The way the air hums with distant echoes of drumbeats fading from some far-off ceremony. Above you, the constellations form patterns that guided priests for centuries. A serpent curling across the sky. A rabbit in the moon. The Pleiades reaching the zenith at the new fire ceremony. Venus gliding as morning star and evening star. The Milky Way stretching like the great celestial road of souls. Each star told a story. Each story held a teaching. Each teaching revealed a truth about the nature of existence. And as you breathe slowly, deeply, gently, you begin to feel that truth settling within you. A truth that life is not linear. A truth that every ending is a beginning. A truth that beauty lies in the fleeting. A truth that harmony arises not from perfection but from balance. A soft descent toward the journey's end. The night grows even deeper now. The city sleeps in perfect stillness. The lake glows faintly with reflected starlight. The world feels ancient, sacred, suspended between breaths. But our journey is not over. In the next block, we move toward the final stretch of our long descent. A gentle reflection on the fall of the great cities, the endurance of myths, and the way Mesoamerican wisdom continues to breathe in the modern world. Like embers glowing long after the fire has dimmed, the night in the Valley of Mexico grows even more still, settling into a silence so deep it feels almost like a second darkness layered over the first. The stars dim slightly as thin clouds drift across the sky. The wind softens to almost nothing. In this quiet, this weightless hush, time itself feels suspended, as though the world is holding its breath before turning the final page of an ancient story. Tonight, we drift toward the end of the great arc of Mesoamerican civilizations. Not as a tragedy, not as a violent collapse, but as a transformation. One more cycle in the long spiral of time. Because everything in this world rises, flourishes, fades, and returns again. Even cities. Even empires. Even suns. The fading of the ancient cities. Before the Mexica rose to power, many great civilizations had already completed their own cycles. To the south, the jungles reclaimed Palenque, Tikal, Copan, and Calakmul, cities that once echoed with the voices of scribes, the footfalls of dancers, the chants of priests reading the stars. Their plazas grew quiet. Their temples were wrapped in roots. Their causeways disappeared under vines and moss. To the north, Teotihuacan, the great city of the gods, fell into silence. Its murals faded. Its workshops emptied. Its markets stilled. For centuries afterward, people walked its abandoned avenue of the dead in awe, believing its pyramids had been built not by humans but by divine beings. To the east, the Zapotecs and Mixtecs endured but transformed, reshaping their cities and customs with each new generation, like rivers carving new paths through an old valley. And as each of these civilizations faded, none vanished entirely. Each left behind stories carved into stone, knowledge preserved in codices, memories flowing in the bloodlines of the people. Cycles turned. Worlds changed. But nothing truly ended. Tenochtitlan at its height. By the time the Mexica rose to power, they carried within them the echoes of every civilization that came before. The Olmec's reverence for the jaguar, the Maya's mastery of time, the Toltec's philosophy of duality, the Teotihuacano vision of a city aligned with the heavens. Under their careful hands, Tenochtitlan became one of the greatest cities the world had ever known. At its height, 80 to 200,000 people lived on the lake island. Its marketplaces could hold tens of thousands at once. Its causeways stretched like protective arms across the shimmering water. Its temples rose like mountains carved by the gods themselves. Travelers from distant lands wrote of its beauty, the gleaming white plaster of its temples, the brightly colored murals, the fragrance of flowers everywhere, the clean streets washed daily, the canal water kept fresh and flowing, the gardens blooming with more varieties of plants than any city in Europe at the time. It was not only a city of stone, it was a city of rhythm, a city of breath, a city built on an understanding that the world was delicate, sacred, alive, the shadow of destiny. Yet even at its height, even as its temples shone under the sun, the Mexica knew that no city lived forever. Their myths told them this. Their calendars whispered it. Their philosophers recited it. All worlds collapse. All suns set. All cycles reach their final turn. Not because of failure but because that is the nature of things. The Mexica did not fear this truth. They carried it with humility. Still, when the moment of transformation arrived, it came with such suddenness, such strangeness, that it felt less like a cycle and more like a dream turning dark at the edges. The arrival of strangers. When the first signs appeared, ships on the coast, figures in metal armor, light glinting off unfamiliar weapons, the Mexica saw them through the lens of myth. Some thought the visitors were envoys of returning gods. Others believed they were omens from beyond the ocean's horizon. They did not know that far away, across a sea they had never seen, another world had grown under a different sun, carrying its own myths, its own ambitions, its own shadows. The streets of Tenochtitlan, usually filled with calm ritual, became pathways of uncertainty. Priests consulted calendars. Warriors sharpened obsidian blades. Nobles spoke quietly behind closed doors. The city held its breath. And the fifth sun continued to rise, continued to fall, continued to glow over a world on the verge of change. The fall, and the continuation. The fall of Tenochtitlan is often told as a story of conquest, of violence, of collapse. And yes, there was devastation. There was sickness. There was confusion. There was fear. But beneath that layer of tragedy lies a deeper truth. The people did not vanish. Their culture did not disappear. Their stories did not die. The descendants of the Mexica live today. The Maya still speak their ancient languages. The Zapotecs and Mixtecs still honor their ancestors. Their myths still breathe through festivals, poetry, art, dance, and daily rituals. Mesoamerica did not end. It transformed. Just as it always had. Just as it always will. The persistence of memory. Even as temples crumbled and cities changed, the stories endured. They hid in lullabies. They survived in whispered prayers. They persisted in the way maize was planted, in the way water was honored, in the way children were taught to respect the earth. Quetzalcoatl still rises as the morning star. Tezcatlipoca still glimmers in obsidian mirrors. The hero twins still play their ballgame across the sky each night. The sun still travels through the underworld, fighting darkness to rise again. The ancient wisdom of Mesoamerica continues to shine. Not in stone now. Not in towering pyramids. But in people. In hearts. In memories, in the quiet understanding that life is a cycle we are all part of, a return to silence. And now, as our long journey begins to drift toward its close, imagine yourself once more in the valley at night. Tenochtitlan is gone, yet it is here. The lake is drained, yet you still hear its water. The temples have fallen, yet their silhouettes rise in your mind. You stand in the quiet darkness. You feel the echo of centuries. You sense the heartbeat of a world that never truly vanished. The air is cool. The stars glow softly. The wind carries the scent of memory toward the final descent. In the next block, we will complete our journey with a final, gentle meditation, a reflection on everything we have seen, everything we have felt, and the deep, peaceful wisdom that Mesoamerican mythology leaves in your heart as you drift toward sleep. The night has reached its quietest moment, the deep, velvety stillness that lies just before dawn. The stars hang low and faint, softened by a thin haze rising from the earth. The world feels suspended as if the fifth sun is pausing, resting, before beginning its daily climb once again. In this sacred hush, your journey through Mesoamerican time is coming to a gentle close. Your mind drifts easily, calmly, like a canoe gliding across the mirror-like surface of Lake Texcoco. You feel the weight of sleep gathering around you like a warm cloak. And the world of myth opens one final doorway, not to a story but to a meditation. A soft, peaceful descent. A walk through memory. Imagine yourself walking slowly through a landscape shaped not by one civilization, but by many. A landscape formed by centuries of human breath, human dreams, human wonder. You move past the colossal heads of the Olmecs, half buried in the green earth. Their faces are calm, watchful, eternal. They have seen worlds rise and fall. They will see many more. You pass into the wide avenues of Teotihuacan, the city of the gods. The pyramid of the sun rises before you like a slumbering mountain. The wind carries faint echoes of footsteps long vanished. You feel as if you are walking through the memory of a dream the earth itself once had. Then you enter the deep, lush jungles of the Maya world. Tall temples rise above the canopy like stone islands in a green sea. You hear the soft murmur of hidden waterfalls. The air is thick with the scent of moss, orchids, and ancient rain. Somewhere in the distance, a conch horn sounds, low, resonant, timeless. You cross through the valleys of Zapotecs and Mixtecs, where the mountains cradle old cities in their arms. You see carved glyphs, painted codices, quiet courtyards filled with shadows and flowers. And finally you return to the shimmering island of Tenochtitlan, the city of water and sky. In your mind's eye it is whole again, its temples bright, its chinampas floating like green jewels, its marketplaces full of color and murmuring voices. All these worlds weave together inside you. Not as history, not as separate stories, but as a single slow-moving river of memory, the rhythm of the fifth sun. You pause. You breathe. You feel the ancient rhythm that guided everything in this world. The rising of the sun, the falling of the night, the cycle of maize from seed to harvest, the motion of Venus across the early morning sky, the turning of calendars large and small, each one a heartbeat of the universe. You feel that rhythm now, steady, gentle, endless, like waves on a shore, like footsteps on soft earth, like breaths slipping in and out of the body. This rhythm asks nothing of you. It simply invites you to rest within it, to float, to release, to be carried. A world that never truly ended. Many people today believe the civilizations of Mesoamerica vanished. But you know now that this is not true. Their people live on. Their languages live on. Their art lives on. Their wisdom lives on. When someone grinds maize on a stone metate, the sound echoes thousands of years. When a child laughs under the warm sun, their joy is the same joy felt by children in ancient markets. When someone lights a candle on the Day of the Dead, they are speaking with their ancestors in the same quiet language the Mexico once used. When someone looks at the sky and feels a sense of awe, they are looking through the same eyes as the Maya priests who watched Venus at dawn. These cultures did not disappear. They became the soil from which new lives emerged. Just as a fallen leaf becomes part of the tree's roots. Just as old cities become part of the dreams of new ones. Just as suns rise and fall, yet the sky that holds them endures. A soft descent into stillness. Now imagine yourself lying down on soft earth. The world around you is dim, warm, peaceful. You feel the cool air against your skin. You hear nothing but the distant echo of water. A breeze moves gently across your face, carrying scents of flowers, stone, and night. Above you the constellations form their quiet patterns. Serpents of light curling across the sky. The path of souls shimmering through the Milky Way. The moon, Xbalanque, glowing softly as Hunahpu, the sun, prepares to rise again in a few hours. You are held by the night. You are safe in the center of an ancient, breathing world. Nothing presses on you. Nothing demands your attention. Everything around you drifts in slow, harmonious motion. You have walked through the birth of worlds, the rise of suns, the shaping of humanity, the building of cities, the wisdom of gods, the descent into underworlds, the cycles of creation, the beauty of poetry, the fragility and strength of life. Now there is nothing left but peace, a deep, dreamlike calm, the feathered serpent's breath. In the final moments of this journey, imagine a soft wind moving across your body. Light, warm, steady. This is Quetzalcoatl's breath, the feathered serpent guiding you gently into sleep. He carries with him the wisdom of balance, the beauty of renewal, the calm of dawn, the patience of stars. He does not speak. He does not need to. His presence alone reminds you that life is a cycle. That rest is sacred, that dreams are a kind of journey, and that when you awaken, the fifth sun will rise again, bright, steady, and warm. Sink into the earth. Feel your body getting heavier now. Feel the earth rising to support you. Feel each breath drifting slowly in and slowly out. There is no need to hold on to thoughts. Let them float away. Let them dissolve. Let them become quiet petals falling onto still water. Your mind grows soft. Your eyelids grow warm. Your breathing deepens. The night folds around you like a blanket. The last words of the night. And now, as you drift towards sleep, the ancient voices of Mesoamerica whisper one final truth. We are only here for a moment. But in that moment we bloom like flowers. Let yourself bloom, softly. Let yourself fade into rest, gently. Let yourself be carried by the endless, peaceful rhythm of a world that has been dreaming for thousands of years. Your journey is complete. Your mind is calm. The fifth sun is at rest. And you are sinking into the sweetest, deepest sleep. Good night.